Hey there, everyone. This is Samuel Johnson, and welcome back to the Lyoko Retrospectives. And today we're going to be discussing episode 19 of Code Lyoko Frontier. So, you remember how in previous vlogs I've kind of called some episodes out as being filler episodes? I take all that criticism back. I mean it, because while those episodes really were just that were typical threats of the week sort of things, honestly, they still had some legitimately good tension and still kept up the pace going, even if a couple times I kind of scratched my head at some of the threats. Like again, if Xana was able to hack into government computers, then why would that feels like that's bigger. That can be a big deal, but whatever. Again, not gonna beat that dead horse. At least those episodes still had stakes and tension and so forth that kind of set the plot. That even if it didn't advance the grander plot, still had some legitimately good tension and action, especially as the threat kind of wound down. In this case, though, but the reason I'm taking all that criticism back, because I think I think this episode is one I would definitely qualify as filler, because while there is a conflict in this episode, one that the characters do have some investment in, it's not caused by Xana. Xana takes advantage of the situation, but he's not the one that set it in motion, but he's not the one that set it in motion. So what is it? Well, it all begins with Jeremy and Aelita working late one night to try and master Aelita's devirtualization program, and as everything goes, it doesn't. They still hit a dead end. In this case, Jeremy ends up getting frustrated, and it turns out that both he and Aelita did the same kind of techno babble on both of their ends, and Jeremy gets angry because no wonder it's going wrong because it doesn't know how to deal with double the same protocol. Aelita ends up apologizing for it, and Jeremy does calm down that he shouldn't have snapped, but Aelita immediately says that maybe they should take a break for the night, and Jeremy's just like, no, wait, don't, we can still work, but she ultimately ends the call. As such, Jeremy ends up feeling guilty the next day because he thinks that she's angry at him, and so during class he decides that if he wants to properly apologize to her, he wants to do it in person. As such, he wants to go to Lyoko. Of course, all the rest of the group thinks this isn't a great idea because he's the only one that really knows how to work the scanners and the computers. But at the end of the day, he's able to talk them into it, and he even gets Yumi to type on the computer, to work on the computer to try and get him devirtualized, telling her that he's got everything set up, and if she has any trouble, just follow his notes, which it turns out is just like this big book. They get Jeremy all set to go to Lyoko, but just as he's getting scanned in, they encounter a problem, as apparently Yumi pretty much input the wrong code or memory or whatever, and pretty much it just caught while Jeremy was virtualized, he didn't end up on Lyoko. He's the best equivalent I could think of is that he's in a form of digital limbo, kind of stuck between Lyoko and the real world. As such, he can still somewhat communicate with Aelita as but otherwise he's just kind of stuck, so to speak. However, since he still can communicate with Aelita, he does have a solution for this. Pretty much, what's going on is that there's a memory issue. They just need to get the proper amount of memory. So they just need the proper amount of memory, and they can devirtualize Jeremy. How they can do this is that Aelita has to go to 4 specific towers located in each of the 4 regions of Lyoko and gather the necessary memory from each of them. And once they have all that, they can route it through all 3 scanners and devirtualize Jeremy. Which in the beginning everything goes fine. Aelita manages to go to the desert and ice sectors and manages to get memory from both of them. But when she goes to the forest sector, she ends up encountering monsters as, like I said, Xana is trying to take advantage of the situation because, as the group has said, Jeremy's the only one that can activate the scanner. So if he's gone, then that means that they won't be able to go into Lyoko if he decides to activate another tower. As such, which also means that Aelita is kind of on her own, which means Aelita is on her own since since all the kids are having problems. Since the kids won't be able to virtualize into Lyoko without Jeremy. While Aelita is able to still get the necessary memory from the forest sector, when she goes to the mountain sector, it turns out that Xana has stationed 2 blocks to guard the remaining tower, which for some reason is red. Don't know why, but whatever. And on top, and as such, pretty much Aelita is stuck. Like, because as we've constantly shown, she's not a fighter, so she can't face these two blocks by herself. So as such, they managed to think of a way to try and get someone into Lyoko, as they still have enough memory to, as they do still have proper memory, but they think that if they can route it through into enough memory into one of the scanners, and they'll be able to at least virtualize one of them one of them. And so they think that they can get like Jeremy's computer and then hook it into the main Lyoko computer, and then they can use the available data to get enough memory to virtualize someone. But again, it ends up. But they ultimately encounter problems as Yumi's the one that goes off, and unfortunately, everyone's just been covering everybody else's ass in this episode. As Ulrich and Odd went to school and said that Jeremy was in the infirmary, and then when Yumi went to, and then when they and Yumi switched places, Yumi to try and get Jeremy's laptop had to say she had to go to the infirmary, but when she was grabbing it, she was caught by Jim, which in turn got her sent to the principal's office. As to try and save them, Ulrich ends up going to Sissy, and as such, and while Sissy is reluctant, Ulrich's able to convince her by having them go out for a month with a down pay, as well as giving her a down payment, which in this case is giving her a kiss. As such, Sissy manages to convince her dad to let Yumi go with Jeremy's laptop, and pretty much, yeah, once Yumi learns what Ulrich had to do to get her out of her, she's not happy. But bottom line, they bring the laptop to the factory, and well, there is pretty much not a moment too soon because they're also encountering another problem, as it turns out the computer is mistaking Jeremy for an old unnecessary file, and so it's in the process of deleting him. As such, they had to find a way to get him out of there quickly before he's gone. So they're able to hook the laptop into the supercomputer, but unfortunately they still don't have enough memory, but they managed to get the last bit of memory from a game that I was playing. As such, Ulrich is able to get in Lyoko, it takes care of the last two blocks, and so Aelita is able to get the final data, and they're able to devirtualize Jeremy. As such, the end of the episode as Jeremy and Aelita talking, and it turns out that it was kind of like a two-way thing. Aelita thought the reason Aelita hung out was because she thought Jeremy was upset with her, so she wanted to give him some space. And it's nice and touching about the end of the episode as Ulrich and Yumi arguing, as Ulrich tries to explain himself, and Yumi just doesn't want to hear any of it. So this isn't it. So like I said, this is probably one of the few episodes that this is probably what I would probably classify as true filler. Because as the show has gone on, I've come to kind of to expect and see the regular formula, which is usually Xana causes a problem, and kids have to find out kids discover it, have to find a way to get into Lyoko, while the problem continues to escalate in the real world, which is still nice, which honestly I have learned to come to accept and enjoy, because usually that stuff is rather interesting. The tension always keeps building up as as the threat just gets worse and worse and lives are on the line. But in this case, while Xana does take advantage of the situation, there are no big stakes. The closest we get is the stuff with Jeremy being deleted. But the problem here is that I don't know, it doesn't feel as grand. Especially, they still kind of, it doesn't feel like there's a sense of high urgency, is what I'm saying. Like, again, the closer we get to that is when Jeremy starts getting deleted, and that's about, 3/4 of the way through the journey. Otherwise, the rest of the time, it's just sort of, they're sort of just treating this like, I guess the best way is an inconvenience. Which I suppose kind of makes sense, because there's the only person whose life is on the line is Jeremy, but they know he's still alive. They know he's still alive. So, and the only time they get attention is 3/4 the way through when he starts getting deleted. But even then, it still feels like they're taking this a little too lax. It's only in the last fourth that they start upping the ante, and even then, it still doesn't have that same tension that other episodes usually have when they're reaching the climax. As in those episodes' cases, things are always continually, the threat is still continually escalating to the point where when Aelita finally does get to the tower, it's at a point where where if they don't deactivate this tower right away, there's going to be a lot more casualties. Like when Xana was caught, like when Xana was destabilizing was using shockwaves to try and create earthquakes. People were on the line, or when he possessed the samurai suit of armor and was about to impale Yumi when she slipped up fighting it, or like the stuff with the rats or the hornets. All that stuff was building up. Hell, the laughing gas. Laughing gas, as you said, laughing gas. That stuff was actually legitimately terrifying. As you saw the kids just slowly getting to the point where they were dying of laughter. In this case, it was all that stuff was just really high tension, and then we have this episode where it's kind of a breather episode, which, and again, I suppose makes sense considering the last episode, which, again, like I said last week, actually was legitimately scary. But here, it's just kind of like, it's true filler. There's no there's no big threat this time around. The problem is mostly an the problem is treated mostly as an inconvenience, and the stakes only get raised a bit when Jeremy starts getting deleted. But even then, they're still only one tower away. They're still close to victory, and all they need to do is, and there are still some stuff that hinder them, both in Lyoko and in the real world, from devirtualizing Jeremy on time. They are still able to get through it rather quickly. They're still able to find ways past it, and even that still kind of feels like slightly inconsistent. Still feels slightly inconsistent as we see Odd playing on his game and just kind of treating this like it's just going to be resolved in no time, which it is, I know, but it's just that it feels too lax. Because if I was in the situation and learned that my friend was being deleted, I would be kind of a little nervous myself. But then that's just me. And again, at the same, and while I would suspect that that the kids may end up playing games to try and keep their minds off it, Odd seems a little too relaxed. And even when they learn that Yumi got delayed, they're not treating it with the same kind of seriousness you would expect them to. It's like, oh no, well great, what are we gonna do now? Now, like their friend isn't being deleted. It just feels like true filler. There's no grand threat this week. There's no do or die situation. It's just they goofed up, and now they gotta ungoof it. Although one of the things that I liked about this episode that was different from the rest, they don't go back in time in this episode. So all the stuff that happens does stick. Them missing classes, Ulrich promising Sissy that he'll go out with her for a month. That stuff sticks around. Now I don't know if the next episode is going to acknowledge that Ulrich is dating Sissy for a month. So, that's something I can look for. So maybe it'll come back up again, maybe not. But at the very least, that was still nice. So I like it for that. And I think the best thing I like about, and I suppose there is still something I liked about this episode that I still think makes it worth watching. The stuff with Jeremy and Aelita. It's still small, short scenes, but I like that it still continues building on their characters and their relationship with each other. Like the beginning, I was originally just gonna call the stuff between Jeremy and Aelita a wash, since it didn't seem like it was really a fight. It felt like Aelita was just, because in the beginning Aelita actually was genuinely apologizing for what happened, and Jeremy Jeremy still wound up apologizing. And then she just kind of logged out, which I interpreted as her giving him space and Jeremy just kind of overreacting. Then again, the only relationship I've been in had only lasted a day, so what do you know? So what do I know about them? But I think what makes up for that, in my opinion, is that when you hear Aelita's side of the story, it turns out that she was afraid that Jeremy was as mad at her, and so I like that. While it shows that it continues showing that. While they most likely don't fight often, it's because they both still genuinely care about each other. To the point where when they do have something close to a spat, which in this case was Jeremy snapping at her as he got frustrated, they both are immediately worried for the other's feelings. Jeremy is scared that he made Aelita angry. Aelita's scared that Jeremy was angry at her, hence why she logged out. It's sweet. And there's actually one scene in the episode as when they finally get all the necessary memory they need to devirtualize Jeremy. We cut to Jeremy as he's in his little digital limbo, and he briefly he actually sees Alita. She's still CGI, kind of meshing with the look of Lyoko while he's animated, but they both are just reaching out to each other, and they finally just touch, which it's sweet. I will admit that it's a sweet moment. Just finally seeing them being able to have that physical interaction. It's nothing like holding hands or anything like that, but it's just sweet. I like that. So so I give credit to the episode. That's actually nice. But the rest of the episode though, it's just genuine filler. And again, and it's filler in the truest sense. Like I said like I said in the beginning of this vlog, it very much just makes me reconsider all my criticisms towards the other episodes as filler, as those still had genuine stakes and grand dilemmas and so forth. But this one, it felt more like a breather episode. Just no major threat, just kids goofing up and having further scenes that remind us that they're still kids, like in the stuff between Ulrich and Yumi. As I feel that that's kind of immature. As I feel that it's a little bit immature, as the kind of the embarrassment and the anger between them, especially with considering all the crap they've gone through together, it's just kind of, yeah. So, yeah. On the end of the day, but yeah, I wouldn't say this episode's is bad, but it is true filler. It's nothing. There's no grand stakes. It's just relationship stuff. But again, that's the stuff that the relationship stuff is sweet and charming, and I genuinely like it for that. So, yeah, that's all I can think of for now. That's all I can think of. So yeah, not a bad. It's true filler. Just true filler. And that's kind of all I can say. Didn't hate it, but yeah, just that's my opinion. Just so. Yeah. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson. I hope I didn't take anyone off, and I will hopefully see you next week. Take care.